Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras, bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Trumah. Trumah literally means an offering or a gift, and it begins a series of chapters where we learn about how to go about building the tabernacle, and at the end of the book of Exodus we learn about how they actually erected the tabernacle based on the instructions that we have here. So we have instructions for the structure itself, for all the various vessels and furnishings that are in the temple, and ultimately as well for all things having to do with the priests. Okay, so if I look at the very first introductory word about this whole thing, verse 8, chapter 25, verse 8, it reads as follows: "And they shall make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them." Okay, many commentaries have noted this unique wording. You would have assumed that the wording would be, "They shall make me a temple so that I may dwell there." No, but God doesn't say that. He says that I may dwell amongst them. Okay, and I think this gives us this little bit of wording here already conveys an incredibly important message. Okay, who is the temple for? One of the problems that affected the nation of Israel for generations, for hundreds of years during the biblical period, was this misunderstanding of what the temple was supposed to be. Okay, was the temple for them or was the temple for God? We know, for example, in Jeremiah, he says, "You think God needs these sacrifices?" And many people says, "Oh, you mean God didn't want the sacrifices? Then why did he give us all these laws that we're going to start reading here about a temple and a sacrifice?" And in these words, we have it exactly. God doesn't need our sacrifices. We need the sacrifices. God doesn't need a temple. We need the temple. And therefore, what God is saying here, you are going to make me a temple so that I may dwell amongst you. God doesn't need the temple to dwell anywhere. God is everywhere. God knows where he wants to be. He's everywhere. He controls the entire world. But we as human beings require some sort of focus, some kind of holiness in order to focus God within us. In order for us to be able to feel God amongst us, it is important. We need something a little bit physical, a little bit tangible. Okay? Now, of course, what we are meeting here is the original conflict, shall we say, in the biblical period between the constant lure of paganism on the one hand and the belief in the one God. A God who has no body, a God who you don't see, the creator of the universe, who is responsible for everything, controls the entire world, and yet we don't see him, we don't feel him, and he's not an entity that requires things. If you look at pagan theologies, okay, in their mind, not just is there multiple gods, but that and not just that each God is separated into what his place of control is, whether it's a particular geographical area or, let's say, the God of fertility or the God of thunder or whatever. Okay, so, these gods each are very limited in their power. But much more than that, in those pagan societies, if you just think back to, Greek mythology, or if any of you have ever read some of the Gilgamesh or the ancient Babylonian mythology, it's all the same kind of thing. The God is eager for the sacrifices. He's eager for the gifts that come from the human beings. He needs them. And it's the human beings that have to sort of bribe the gods to do what they want. Okay? So you definitely have a sense there that God needs their God. A pagan God needs these gifts. He needs the temple. Whereas here, you're dealing with human beings that are so accustomed to that way of feeling God or thinking God, that they have a natural desire to bring a gift to God, to bring something to in this way communicate with God, perhaps to express thanks, to express needs. And of course, God recognizes that the communication, a human being, in order to feel God's presence, needs to be able to communicate with God. And therefore, that is the purpose of the temple. The purpose of the temple is to have a place where the people, human beings, can come and meet, can do certain things, can feel that they are giving offerings to God, but the purpose is really for them, because it gives them the ability to feel God's presence within them. Now, I think also, if we think about the whole concept of holiness, okay, what this is essentially doing is saying that the temple holier, okay? And you have this idea, for example, today, Jews are very careful. Many don't go up on the Temple Mount at all, and those who do go up on the Temple Mount, they're very, very careful not to go into the places on the Temple Mount that we believe is where the temple would have stood, actually. Not the courtyard of the temple, but the actual insides of the temple, the Holy and the Holy of Holies. And we also know from the Bible that the Holy of Holies is a place that only the high priest can go, and only once a year. So there is this idea of an extreme holiness that is attached to a particular place. But again, what God is saying here is, it's not holy because I'm sitting there, okay? I'm not sitting there. I'm everywhere, God is saying, okay? But by focusing God's presence on a particular place, it helps us respond to God with the appropriate awe, with the appropriate fear, with the appropriate reticence, distance. You know, we talk about God in Judaism, we say, our Father, our King. And it is very important that we maintain both types of relationships with God. We can pray to God as if He is our Father, and we can do that all the time. But there is an element, and this is what the temple represents, the element of where you come before God as the King, and you recognize that God is above us. He is holy. There are places that we don't go. There are places that are holier than others. And so this too becomes a purpose of the temple, a place where enables us to focus our thoughts and our deeds towards God, but also keeps us in this holiness sort of framework that helps remind us that God is not our neighbor. Okay, God is, yes, our Father, but He's not like our real Father. Okay, He's way above that. And in order to keep that distinction and that distance, that is also something that the temple helps us to remember, both a closeness and a distance at the same time. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below, as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.